Is that a cover song? So I finally got my radio working. After 6 months being here, I finally got my fucking basic ass radio working. Although the record player is still not working. But at least I have an AM FM tuner. Fucking old school. But that's just one speaker. I don't even have the other speaker hooked up. I have to split some wires, so. Trusty Ape. I told you I'd be back. I know I just came from Breeze Stream. I'm not sure if Silver was still streaming. I had to finish my dishes and stuff. Yeah, it's been kind of one of those evenings. Okay, but I had a couple things I wanted to look at on here before I have to return the Wi-Fi hotspot. And amongst those is, and I say this in jest, it's one of the worst music videos I have ever seen. And it's an awful music video, but I researched this and I came to find out these guys actually did this in like the early 2000s when I was still in my baby britches. And if I would have heard this song back when it was released, I would have said it was total shite. I would have just fucking laughed my pants off at these guys. But it's really ballsy considering the time that they did it and the type of band they are. And when you think about it, like, it's obviously like they're doing it for that reason. Like, they're trying to be cheesy and over the top about certain things. And it was here in my watch later list earlier, or my history rather. Let's see if I can find it here again, or if I have to go do that. Okay, well, if I just have to search it, that's fine. We'll just do that. So this is like one of the cheesiest music videos I've ever seen, and we'll review it, and I'll have to stop it frequently so that I don't get the copyrights. But yeah, I think it's worth doing, and then we'll talk about the other thing I wanted to talk about. Hello, greetings. I'll greet chat in a second. I just want to load up my tech bullshit here. I see a comment at least. Somebody's watching. What's up, Silver Wolf? Good to see you. You lurking out there? So this is by a band called The Darkness. And this song is called I Believe in a Thing Called Love. And we'll go with the official music video. I've been watching this guy's channel. He does a podcast called Justin Hawkins Rides Again. And he's the main singer and songwriter for this band. I don't know if for this song at least, I don't know if he does like all the primary songwriting for the band, but I know he does the primary songwriting for this song. And it's like their big hit. And a friend of mine turned me on to it not so long ago. I'm sure I probably heard of the band before, but they're just kind of like slipped under my radar. But I went and I watched this music video, and I fucking cried. So already you've got like the Spaceballs thing going on with the space, which is just it's just great to start off. And you hear the riff, like it's gnarly, but it's got that vibe to it, right? It's got that vibe.
Can't explain all the feelings that you're making me feel. My heart's in overdrive and you're behind the steering wheel.
Hey, I know it's not just me, right? This is fucking hilarious. Like, it pops out buck naked, and he's dancing with like a fucking.
Touching you, touching me, touching you, touching you.
I think this is technically my first music video review, which is awesome because I've watched music videos on here and I've got myself like plenty of copyright infringement. But this, so like already I'm like if I had watched this when it came out, like almost 20 years ago or something, or it probably was like 20 years ago, I would have been like, this is total cheese. But now I'm like, this is gold. Like, this is great. I love it. So, yeah, we'll continue.
I believe in a thing called love. Just with the chance we can make it now. Even until the sun goes down. I believe in a thing called love. Ooh.
That dude looks just like Lemmy, doesn't it? He says, "Show me." I love that song. I didn't even know this fucking song existed. That's what I'm saying. I was like, I don't know. What is that? I know it's fucking epic. It rocks. The video's even better. That's why we've got to review it. This is just amazing. So when I said it was the worst music video I'd ever seen, I actually lied.
I wanna kiss you every minute, every hour, every day. You got me in a spin, but everything is say okay.
What's up with the random giant crab throwing a rock at him? Like, obviously, this isn't like the special effects guy going on a tangent. You know, like they weren't like all super high. Like, you know, it'd be really cool if we put you on this weird kind of barren planet, and then there was a random crab that throws a rock at you. That would be great. No, now you have to finish the video with me, William. There's just no way you can't.
Touching you, touching me, touching you, touching you. I believe in a thing called love. Just with the chance we can make it now. We're up until the sun goes down. I believe in a thing called love. Ooh. Get down.
Was that white phallic shaped thing with the red tip he was holding there? I think that might have been an innuendo. I'm not sure.
touching you, touching me.
I know. I will say, I think that the Lemmy looking, I think he's the bass player. That Lemmy looking motherfucker. He's the creepiest member of the band for sure. Like every time he comes on screen, it gives me the willies. He might be, but doesn't matter. I mean, that's why I love Queen. I don't care that he likes fat bottom girls and big dick boys. Or liked whatever. That's fine. It makes no difference to me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you should see him now. I mean, is this being uncooperative again?
Touching you, God, you touch you. I believe in a thing called love. Just give it to my heart. With a chance we can make it now. When we look until the sun goes down. I believe in a thing called love.
You see what I mean, though? It do strut. It do strut. It's got that. It's got the strut. I was the one talking about the white phallus. It was just in the one scene before the guitar solo. He just pops up in this hallway and he's got this like random friggin' dildo looking thing that he's singing into, like just for the one frame. And you're like, what was that? I don't know. Yes, the 80s called. They want their song back. It's one of those retro things, man. I guess, like I remember not long after that time, around 2007, 2008, I joined a band with a bunch of guys who were like 20 years older than me. And they were like, power metal is making a comeback, man. And then I played out with them for a while, and it turned out that it was not really making a comeback. It was like mostly like their buddies from high school who were all just like barflies at that point, who would come out to the shows. But like the kids were not digging it. They were not digging it. So hello, Housey. Good to see you. Yeah. Just making a darn fool of myself. Thought I'd review that music video. I'd be like, you know what? Actually, I think it was pretty awesome, considering they had the balls to do it when they did it. But no, it's still absolute cheese. It's good for lulz, and not a bad riff. It's not the worst riff ever. I don't know. I appreciate the articism in guitaristry or whatever they call that thing. So I happen to be kind of like tuning in, and I want to see this thing that Ace was writing last night. I was eating a bowl of chili with my shirt off while I was watching, so I wasn't able to participate in the side chat because obviously reasons. But yeah, let's see what we got here. I was like, this is perfect for me because I am secular, pro free will, and Ace is Christian, anti free will. So at some point, there it is. And then y'all went on for a while about this. I wasn't able to see the whole thing, but I did see what Ace was writing in the beginning. I wanted to respond to that. Where in here we make sense of things. Hey, if I tell you I'm streaming shirtless, I'm streaming shirtless. That's just, there's no two ways around it. Hey, if it made you think twice, maybe you weren't so, maybe you weren't so sure about your sexuality to begin with there. You know? All it takes is one time. One time thinking about the gay. Let's see, where is Asa pick up on this one? Okay, here we go. Begins to write. So, and I think around the time that I started streaming, we were in like the 6th premise. So I was just kind of like, there's like a number of premises here we're going to go over here. Mythology of free will. Okay, I just read off the bat. I mean, cool, but I'm not sure how that's going to be relevant to the free will discussion. But good to know, I suppose. Okay, so is this part of like an ongoing like log that he's completing now? Now I'm curious. Like, it sounds like this is an ongoing work. I suppose all myths have something in common, dear one, and free will is no different. May speed this up a little bit since it looks like he's going to be writing through the majority of the beginning of it. So he says, myths, even urban myths, sound somewhat reasonable and even possible. Well, yeah, it's part of mythology. We believe that is plausible. most of us believe the Santa Claus myth. I'm gonna call BS on that one, but it's not just because Santa Claus isn't a myth. It's reinforced, right? Like we reinforce the idea of Christmas, the season of giving, and all of that. So it's reinforced throughout society. It's like the Jesus myth. It's not like something that you just believe because it's possible. You believe it because it is normal. Like people normalize that in your society. If you're in a place in the world where that myth is not normalized in society, there are places in the world where people don't know about Christmas or Santa Claus, and it means nothing to them. Until we were 5, 6, or 7 years old. Well, yeah, and there's an element to that one specifically where you tend to lose that sense of gullibility, right? There's a reason that your intuition leads you to no longer believe in Santa Claus. It's less likely that somebody tells you that you discover that Santa Claus is not real, right? By your own investigations. And even after, I think some people choose to continue believing. I met like grown adults who continue to say, "Oh yeah, I believe in Santa," and keeping it, and it's like they're full of it. Like these people have kids, but they have to say it out loud to reinforce the belief system. Like otherwise, it's irrational. And even after we acknowledge its mythology status, most of us continue to promote the Santa Claus myth for the sake of our children, in quotes. There's no need to put the quotation around that. That's what it is. You want to have belief. You want to have a sense of hope for children, right? Even if it seems irrational to adults. That's kind of the point of the Santa Claus myth and even the Jesus myth. If you think about it, when they push it on children, they're trying to tell them to hope for something that they themselves know is irrational. They themselves would not hope for that, but they want their children to continue to believe because that gives them hope. So thus far, we have not hit free will at all. And this was kind of part of why I wanted to look at this because, I think he does make some interesting points later on, but I hadn't seen the beginning of this. So let's see how this argument runs. Even though we, on this channel, often get excoriated by Orthodox Christians for being quote-unquote universalists, I bet there are hundreds, if not thousands, of pastors across the land who know that, quote unquote, hell is mythology. But they don't go out of their way to undo hell's teaching. Interesting. So you believe that hell is mythology. So there is only the earth and the heaven, right? Because you have to have heaven. You can't be a Christian without heaven, as far as I understand. So it's only the hell part that they call mythology. But those pastors who, according to you, know that hell is mythology, don't undo the teaching of hell. Therefore, they teach of hell, or they gloss over the teaching of hell, so they are complicit, according to this theory. Much like the Santa Claus myth. Now, I wonder, how is that like the Santa Claus myth? Because Santa Claus doesn't teach, well, I guess he kind of has in orthodoxy, right? It's like Santa knows what you're doing, and if you do good stuff, you'll get good things. If you do bad stuff, you might not get anything. If you do sufficiently bad stuff, then you might get like a really bad thing, which isn't like what is it to get a lump of coal in your stocking? It's not like getting, a beating. But, if you believe like those other, like, Black Pete or something, those guys would come and beat you down in the middle of the night. Oh, you're over there breaking the dragon's brain? Yeah, people don't know those Vikings, they were savages, man. All kinds of crazy shit. And nobody wanted to mess with a Viking woman. They were as deadly or more deadly than the men. So yeah, no, I think that's a false equivalence to say that pastors who don't undo the mythology of hell are doing the same thing as people who perpetuate the myth of Santa Claus, because I think it's more equivalent to like perpetuating Santa Claus is more equivalent to like perpetuating Jesus. That's the way I look at it. Giving me grief now. Now regarding the myth of free will. Okay, this is the part we're waiting for. I don't really think all that other stuff is necessary.
At St. Jude, it was just Claire and I.
The second No Doubt song I've heard in like the last hour. All right. So, regarding the myth of free will, one, like many myths, the lingo surrounding this myth is vague. I tend to agree with this point, although I think what he later says is that people can't clearly define what they mean by free will. I think people can. They just have a variety of definitions for what they mean by free will. vague, ambiguous, and sounds intelligent at first. But it mostly boils down to blathering. Well, like most deep philosophical endeavors, yeah, that's probably what it sounds like. But what do you think about it? Tell us how you really feel. Okay. 2. Free will lingo says you can choose. In quotes. Right. You have a choice. You have the freedom of choice between choice A, choice B, choice C, down ad infinitum. You may have an infinite series of choices. And you, the individual, can choose which decision you make regardless of predetermination, right? So this is free will versus predetermination. All things are predetermined, or all things are entirely a product of the will and of the freedom of individual entities, which are both absurd. They're both absurd. This is why compatibilism is the only answer. But I say yes, but so what? Who cares if I can choose? Why does it matter? Why do my choices matter? Well, that's kind of the idea. Your choices as an individual entity affect other entities. So there you have the overlap of actions and consequences. You have the consequence of what your action, how your action affects other entities around you in the world, and then how they react to you. I have to pause for this. Cher says, no, my idea of the worst video was San Quentin by Nickelback. That must have been horrible. I missed it. I missed all the worst ones. No. It definitely grew on me after the first time, but the first time I watched it, I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe they actually, it's like, what kind of a budget did you film that on? I'm sure you could teach him Norse if he really had the attention span for it, but I'm not sure that's out of the realm of possibility. But some personal choices can affect others. Don't crack the space-time continuum. Right. And it's like the butterfly effect, man. You never know. Like, just that one time you like knocked over a mailbox or, built a pipe bomb or something. I don't know, man. Affects the trajectory of the whole universe. Throw things out of equilibrium. You got to be careful with that stuff. Right. Free Will Lingo says Adam had a choice in the garden. So this is a big one. So you have to believe in the garden, the serpent, the whole story, right? For any of this, like to even apply to you. Because again, talk about free will outside of the context, or maybe you can. and maybe lots of people do, but I mean, we're in this context now. So Adam had a choice in the garden. What was his choice? To follow Eve, right? Because Eve succumbed to the serpent first, and then she was like, no, it's fine, just do it. We're all doing it, everything's going to be fine. And then Adam did it too. So if Adam hadn't done it, then just Eve would have been cursed and Adam would have been fine. Then what would have happened? I don't know. Okay, Adam's choice was to eat of the forbidden fruit. It was not the most ideal choice. But what about Eve's choice? We've already surpassed. What about Eve's choice? I mean, if Eve is the mother of all the people, right, in the story, then didn't Eve's choice matter equally? But it was choice nonetheless, right? You had the decision to do it or not do it. Both of them did. They both made the wrong decision. Now God punishes everybody through the rest of humanity for the choice of the first people. But now you're going to try to conclude that we do not, in fact, have choice because God predetermined the whole thing, which means that neither Adam nor Eve would have had free will either. What is up, Captive Desk? Good to see you. Yeah, I've heard similar stuff to this. I was told the reason why women bleed and childbirth is painful is because Eve was tempted by the serpent. And that's the same gospel I am familiar with. The alternative was worse. What was the alternative? The alternative was to not eat the fruit and not have any consequence. I don't see how that was worse. The very meaning of the word choice? No, the choice can be completely benign. That's what you're not understanding. It's not the choice between good and evil. That's one type of choice. I mean, the choice between, pepperoni and ham, it's a benign decision. So you can still have free will and like the pineapple on pizza an argument. But that's different than what you're talking about. I tend to agree with you there, William. I mean, he said, I love Ace. It's the best of what can come from that cursed book. Yeah. I think a genuinely charitable Christian. To catch up here, it's the very meaning of the word choice, the best of all possible options. See, and again, I don't think that's necessarily what is meant by it. I think that's what some people tend to believe when they believe in the will. They believe that you have the will to choose to do better than what? Than the wrong option. The wrong option according to what? And that depends on your yardstick, right? If your yardstick is the Bible, it's going to say one set of things. And then if you take another yardstick, like some secularists do, and say, well, the measure is well-being. Well, the most well-being for the most possible people, or something like that, right? But you can take a different yardstick than just good and evil as described in the Bible. 4 says, not eating the forbidden fruit was not choice. There was too much risk involved in not eating. Well, at that point, I think the only consequence that was introduced was to eating the fruit. They never said there was a consequence to not eating the fruit. The only consequence of not eating the fruit was not knowing. And you didn't need to know, right? You had to make the choice that knowledge was worth the consequence of eating the fruit. That was the choice. So it was actually to do the wrong thing for the right reason, at least in your own perception. So 5, the language of free will clouds our thinking about many matters. Well, what specifically? I could think of some examples, but I want to see what Ace means by that. Okay. So 6, mostly the language of free will is used by the religious to get God off the hook for creating evil and being God at the same time, which I agree with, because if you believe that God is all good and all love and all encompassing, then a thing created under God could not be evil by definition, right? That would be antithetical to everything that most Christians believe, unless you believe that you gave Satan a certain authority to have dominion over evil, and that people are susceptible to that influence to become evil, right? But that wouldn't be godly. That'd be something other than godly. God still created and allowed for that. Why? How? Explain. And then he's just saying, well, some theists will just be like, well, it's because God wanted you to have the freedom to choose. And if you choose to do the evil thing, then okay. And that's circular again. Because why would God create evil in the first place if it's not necessary? But see, I, as a secularist, I can come at it from a completely different angle and say, well, if neither good nor evil exists, and we're talking in the realm of positive or negative choices and their outcomes, well, then we can go and take that secular yardstick, that other measuring tool, to figure out how we get positive and negative outcomes from people's individual wills. Because if there's no free will, in the matter of crime, that's the same in the matter of sin, right? Because sin is crime in the eyes of God. It's just crime in the eyes of society. Well, if there were no free will, nobody could ever be accountable for the things that they did, right? There would always be some deterministic root that made it so that person was never ever accountable for their actions. Hey, Richard Madsen, good to see you. Richard said, why did not Adam simply ask Yahweh to lift any curse on the fruit? There you go. Bless the fruit. Sure says, I choose to follow a moral code, and we can't know good without evil. I don't know about that. I mean, we have to have something to compare it to, but we have the relative. I mean, again, I take exception to talking about evil, because when we talk about evil, we're talking most of the time about people's intentions. And most of the time, when bad things happen, it's because of unintended consequences. People don't necessarily intend for the harm that they cause, but the action to them seems a righteous and noble one. And it's not until after the fact that they realize that action had those unintended effects. And then they have to decide how they proceed after that. Good question there from Richard. is it's also used to cloud our thinking and reasoning powers as like a form of control by religious leaders. Sounds like who we're talking about here. And when you say that, I don't think it's not necessarily to cloud your reasoning powers. It's to keep you from doubting the powers of the deity, right? Because once these questions come into mind, it entertains all types of other questions, and we have to prevent those questions from being asked in order to maintain a this faithfulness, this unwavering belief in the deity, in the structure. Okay, 7. Probably the most important. To prove that free will is a myth, just see if you can find a free will promoter who can actually define the dang word. Well, okay, as quaint as that is, I do promote the idea of free will, and I can basically define it as freedom being uninhibited and will being the act of choice. Say that we have, to an extent, an uninhibited choice between option A, option B, option C, all the way down the line. But I would say that is compatible with a deterministic view that says that we're more likely to make choice B because we are conditioned to do so through our experience and our environment. It's more likely that we will choose choice B, option B, more often than not, but people do have the freedom to break away from option B and choose another option. And that's the free will component. But it's only one component to the experience, and it's not ultimate. I wouldn't say people have like pure ultimate in that sense that some people say. It's not completely uninhibited. You're always going to have the expectations in your experience is going to set expectations for you. Environmental factors, including other people. So when you're making choices, you're considering how other people are going to perceive those choices or how those choices are going to affect other people. And that's going to play into your decision making. So it's not purely uninhibited. It's not completely and entirely ultimately free, but it is free in the sense that you still do have the option to make that other choice unless there's something that is definitely inhibiting you from choosing option C. So it's pretty easy to define what it means. Now, to show it in action or prove that it is what some people say it is, much more difficult. Oh, what's up, bro, Joe? Good to see you. Missing all the richness in the side chat here. Richard said, we do need evil to know good, in my opinion. I avoid some things I have never done on the word of beings I trust. I never did any hard drugs, for instance. Mom said drugs kill brain cells. That's a good decision. And then Cher said, I've done things that I felt were wrong, and it bothered me for a while. I've done things considered a sin, and it felt good. It never bothered me. Exactly. I'm right there with you. I don't think the way we perceive sin in society is correct. So. All right, well, I guess I'll do this. What's he doing, you ask? Oh, nothing. Don't mind me. Nothing to see here. Little Timmy's trapped down at the bottom of the well again. We better go save him.
Without transportation, you can't work.
God, well, thanks for that freaking message. So without transportation, you can't work. All right. The word is not found to be found in the Bible, so we cannot look to the Bible to define this word. Well, it's a term. I think I would agree. As far as I know, there is no actual reference to free will in the Bible. That's something that's interpreted. We can find many references to God's will. True. Or God's choice. But it also does say, it does make references to the choices of man. Like, there's certain instances I could think of, like with the Pharaoh, the instance in Exodus with the Pharaoh, where God keeps hardening the Pharaoh's heart. Like, that's one where you see the direct influence of God imposing his will on man. But it's not like that throughout. It's only like that in certain passages, as far as I know. But free will, no, it's just not there. He says, we might find a reference to man's will, but even that phrase is rather skimpy in the Bible. I don't know that it might be, but I do know that it's a stark contrast when we say the God's will versus the man's will. There is a dichotomy there, right? There's a true dichotomy there, where they're pitting the will of God against the will of man. And at least in the Bible, from the biblical standpoint, God's will wins every time. Like, every time man tries to impose his will and is opposed by God, he loses badly. So that's the whole moral of that story. But that doesn't say that the man doesn't have will. Free will is a myth. Base statement. God's will is a thing. Man's will might be a thing, so now you're leaving it open to interpretation again. Man's will would be free will. If it's man's will independent of God, what is it? It is free. It is independent of the will of God. That's all that is meant by it in this context, as far as I can tell. I don't know how much freer you can be as a man other than to do something independently of the will of your creator. But free will is not a thing. So man's will can be man's will, but it's not free. Not free, just something else. Something other than free. Something other than God. Something of man, but not free because reason? I don't think we found it yet. It's a good run. No? Is there any more to add to this? Free will is a myth. God's will is a thing. Man's will might be a thing, but free will is not a thing. Man's will cannot be free. No room for it. Why? Because man's will must be imposed by God, according to this narrative. We don't all have to believe this narrative.
Do unto others. Or something.
Golden rule. I like it. Good place to leave it. We'll drop the carrot now. I know he's going open room soon. There's going to be people bouncing off the walls in there. It'll be utter chaos. Cher says, I'm outie. All right. Well, I haven't any, but, good to know. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Be well. Yeah, probably. Richard's got questions for me here. Let's see how you... Wait. Start from the beginning here. Let's see how you process this. Instructions are for those who can follow them. The Bible is instructional. Only Jesus fulfills the Bible. Logical conclusion, the Bible was to instruct Jesus. It's an interesting perspective. But then why do we receive the Gospels of Jesus? I guess I would ask that question. But I could see how I won't follow that logic. Or not even just Jesus himself, but the disciples and followers of Jesus, right? Maybe even down to like Constantine and those guys. This one says, someone has hatred for you for what they think of you, which is not true of you. Kevin has hardened their heart. Did you exercise your will in any way? Okay, well, when I look at it that way, no. Okay, so it's their perspective of me that causes the hardening of the heart against me. But I did not actually impose my will in that sequence of events. Now, it may be by some previous action of me, whether it's true or not, but rumored to be true, that this happens, but that's just a matter of my reputation. So it's not a matter of the reality of me. And again, I didn't cause them to think that thing. And if I were to manipulate a person the other way, I could still do that thing and have them not harden their heart, I suppose. You don't have to do anything to someone so that their heart is hardened by you. All that needs to happen is they dislike you, maybe based on other people's opinions. Okay, I could see that. Frojo says, You are now free to do as you will with certain parameters set outside as well as within. And some anomalies may occur. I like it. I like it a lot. And I'm here for it. So, with that, I think I'll do the good old quit while I'm ahead motif. And we got through the videos I wanted to get through. One of the best, worst music videos I've ever seen. The Darkness, I Believe in a Thing Called Love. Just genius. That is gold. Go and check it out. And yeah, I think me and Ace Theo and I we should have a little conversation, a little chatter about this one of these days in the future. Maybe y'all can join. And I will bid you all adieu and say much love, as I say on the end of every stream, because I say the same thing at the end of every stream all the time. I'm completely consistent. Much love. Be well. Be kind. Stay trusty. And let's keep them hearts, reasonably soft. Not too soft, but not too hard. Brum, 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 brum. Brum, brum.